Okay. Then let's begin. Welcome everybody to our, should we call it the Thanksgiving version of the Transit Riders Council? I wish we had a lot more to be thankful of. At least we're still breathing and everything, but the fiscal outlook, obviously you've all heard, unless you've been in a closet or in a cave, is horrific. The possibilities are what we all feared could happen absent federal funding. The MTA board will actually vote on a 2021 budget at the December meeting. We sure hope we get good news before then. We are still in dire need of the $12 billion to get us through the year. If we don't get this funding, they are still seriously talking about a 40% cut in bus and subway service, a 50% cut in commuter rail service, 9,367 layoffs, which is higher than we were told when we heard initially that it was going to be in the 7,400 person range. A complete halt in the capital program, which is devastating to the system and its future health. The expected $3.9 billion in HERO Act funding never came through because it never happened. They are still considering 4% fare yield, 4% yield fare hikes in 2021 and 2023. They are predicting $16 billion in losses through 2024. Capital fund lockbox money will be used for operations to get us through this difficult time, so even worse service cuts don't take place. We hope that the FEMA reimbursement will happen. That's $220 million. It's expected to come in 2021 with a new administration. The current administration is blocking that, apparently. McKinsey Consultants estimates that we will recover to between 80 and 90% of our pre-pandemic ridership by 2024. Some others are predicting we would get there earlier, especially if a vaccine is available in second and third quarter of 2021, and people feel more comfortable about being out. In addition, the high-tech technologies that's being tested on Metro North and Long Island Railroad right now would be a game changer if it proved successful and was installed throughout the system. Then you'd actually be safer riding in a train or bus or commuter train than you would be in a store or restaurant or in your own home even. Because this not only blocks, as I think I said last month, the COVID germ, but it also even blocks to the common cold germ. It's quite amazing. I will say that in the 4% yield fare hikes that are being discussed and which will be the subject of public hearings between December 1st and December 21st of this year. Obviously, they will be virtual hearings. There may be some centers where people can actually go and see the entire hearing and the panel on a big screen, but I think this might actually get, between the horrible possibilities being offered and the fact that these service cuts are in the offing, and the fact that it will be virtual, people can do it from the comfort of their home. We may get a lot more people testifying than we ever did before, since you won't actually have to go to a place to do it. You can do it from the comfort of your home. So they're predicting 4-hour sessions. They didn't tell us yet how many there would be, but I'm assuming there will be at least 6 of them. But we will see. But as I said, in this fare hike scenario, there are some fairly inventive possibilities for fares. Apparently, the chair of the Finance Committee, Larry Schwartz, believes, and there is some evidence to back his belief, that there is a fair amount of fraud in the time-based weekly and monthly Metro cards. And so one of the proposals is to do away with time-based passes, but keep or lower the current fare. There are some interesting possibilities for commuter rail fares. including lowering the amount of zones, and this is fairly controversial, to just two zones, a city zone and a suburban zone. So under that scenario, a ticket to Garden City would cost the same as a ticket to Montauk. Pretty incredible. I don't know if that's going to go. That was Commissioner Neil Zuckerman's proposal. I understand that not everybody who lives further out on the Metro North or Long Island systems is loaded with money. That's part of the reason for this. There are some lower income communities far out, and they end up paying a really large commutation fee. I've also suggested the possibility, because people are not traveling the same way they used to, and because you don't know how many times you'll be going to an office versus working from home, that instead of being locked into a calendar month, they offer a 40 trip ticket, so that you go at your, when you need to go, and you don't go, and you don't get penalized for not going. And I did speak with Mark Young earlier today, who made the presentation and is leading the fare initiatives for all of the operating agencies. And he found that an interesting proposal, and they will be adding language to allow for a proposal of that sort in the public notice. I believe the public notices on the fare hikes and service cuts will be out by tomorrow, if not already. And they haven't yet spelled out specific service cuts yet. We are all awaiting, sadly awaiting, what those proposals will be. The possibility of the complete elimination of some bus lines that are within walking distance of other bus lines, but were lightly used, could take place. The elimination of some commuter lines on weekends could take place. The absolutely hideous doing away with all west of Hudson Metro North service, I did not see listed, and am awaiting details on that proposal. That did not show up yesterday. The vote on the new fares will take place at the January board meeting. Toll hikes, of course, are also going to go up. They are likely, for Easy Pass customers, going to be an increase of $6.75, higher for non-Easy Pass users. And they are, for the first time, and maybe this is in conjunction with congestion pricing, which might make some sense, they are talking about different priced tolls depending on time of day and day of week. That could be the precursor to congestion pricing, which we hope will proceed apace with the new administration. And I know that Trudy, who has been in touch frequently with the Biden transition team, is well aware of the need for this and has spoken on its behalf. And Trudy, would you like to say a few words on this matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Since you were part of my conversation with the chairman this morning about it, it sounds funny to say when we're talking about $12 billion that we can get $1 billion, because it's such, $1 billion is a lot of money, but not when when it's only 1/12 of what you really need. But at the same time, one of the things that the current administration, the current occupant of the White House, as Whoopi Goldberg calls him, has done is not, those of you who know over the years all the conversations we had about congestion pricing, and I've been pushing this for the longest time. And finally, it was passed by both the state assembly and the state senate, and then the governor signed off on it, and we were all ready to go. Andrew, correct me if anything that I'm saying.
I'm listening.
Okay, but I'm giving you permission to correct me. Anyway, okay. But it was all signed off, and it would have been, because it takes it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year to have it actually up and working because of the toll booths and the technology that has to be installed, et cetera. But it was ready to go. It was ready to go a year ago, except that there had to be either an EIS or an EAS, the EIS taking less time. No, the EAS taking less time. I'm sorry.
EA.
Environment. The EAS, right, takes less time.
Environmental assessment versus
the
EIS.
environmental assessment. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the alphabets as opposed to the environmental impact. But either of those had to be signed off, had to be instituted by the federal government and then signed off by the EPA, Environmental Protection Administration. And it has just been sitting there, and the current administration doing nothing about it. So this was the conversations that I had with the chief economist of the transition committee the other day, and then talked to the chairman about it this morning. Because what hopefully will happen is that rather than waiting for congressional action or anything else, that that President Biden, once he becomes President Biden, can just do an executive order which will cause everything, the EAS, to immediately go into action, and getting the EPA or the acting EPA, whatever, to sign off on it, so that we can at least have the prospect of close to $1 billion within 6 months or so, which is capital. But as Andrew just said, because there are probably provisions to use all the money out of the lockbox and capital money and mixing everything together, just as long as we have, money, that we will hopefully have $1 billion by, I don't know, next summer or something to at least do something with.
Trudy, let me just interrupt you for a second. The idea of this congestion pricing is the approximate billion it brings in allows bonding to the tune of 9 or 10 billion, and the whole idea is
$15 billion over 5 years.
Over 5
but you
years.
have to. It takes the time to bring that money in, because you have to. Because that's cars come in and you collect the tolls.
Believe me, and it's also if there is the probability of having that kind of money, you can do a bond issue with knowing that the money will be coming in. We did that back in the time of the fiscal crisis, if those of you who remember, back in where for the first time we issued bonds, the MTA. And it backed up by, quote, the full faith and credit of the fare box. Even though the money was not there, it was that whatever came in would be used as the backup for the bond issue. So it could happen, but at least there will be, money coming in as soon as we get this EIS or EAS, and hopefully it will be the EAS, which takes less time, signed off by the EPA and get it moving. So that's what I've kind of been working on. And I got the chairman's go-ahead. I didn't want to do it just on my own. I asked a lot of questions, but this morning the chairman said, absolutely, go ahead and doing it. So Andrew and I will be working on this together, or at least I will be letting Andrew know what I'm doing all the way. And Lisa, as I said when we started, I did want to thank you also that in your public statement at the board meeting yesterday, that you also, more than mentioned, but spoke about congestion pricing as something, as a tool we could use. And I would ask all the other TRC members and anybody else who's on this call that you also, with your groups and with your organizations, talk about getting congestion pricing and getting it done as soon as possible.
And let's be clear.
Judy. I mean, one of the other mechanisms that's been talked about and that the chairman's also discussed is the categorical exclusion, which would allow it to go through without having to go through a further assessment. But one of the things let me just interrupt you for a second. The categorical exclusion leaves us open for
because there are actually some people who don't like congestion pricing.
Right.
They don't want to pay the tolls, and that would leave us wide open. So while it would save a lot of time, it would leave us open for lawsuits. And in this litigious world that we're all a part of, that's not going to be my decision. That's
Right.
something that the board and that the chairman and others are going to have to decide. But it's my feeling that even though we may save time, we leave ourselves too wide open.
That's the
just
chairman's view as well.
Understood. The other aspect is the appointment of the Traffic Mobility Review Board, the TMRB, which is the group that will make the recommendation to the Bridges and Tunnel Authority for the actual exemptions, and that has to be in place and make those recommendations so that
Exemptions, pricing, time
Yep.
of day,
all of that,
Yeah.
all of that.
And
So-
let's be clear, the $1 billion Trudy is referring to, it was part of the 12 billion that we're asking for. We would have had that 1 billion had we gotten an answer the year ago that we asked for the the U.S. Department of Transportation to give us an answer on what type of environmental review.
That would have actually been coming in right about, it would,
January
congestion
of
pricing would be going into place. It would be implemented in January of 21. So
Yep.
the funding would be coming through at the end of 21 and be bonded to be for the $15 billion in 22.
Yeah, but one of the things that I've learned, especially in dealing with the current administration, is that we can't look back and say if only they had done this, that, or the other thing, because they didn't, and there's no way of making it happen. So we just have to look forward. And as I said, the fastest way to do it is for an executive order from the new president, and to get all the no pun intended, but I will say it anyway, or get all the wheels turning as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Trudy, for your work on that. And I am reminded that Stuart asked me a question about the vending machines at our last meeting, how many masks have been sold, and I was able to get you that information on the Long Island Railroad.
Thank you.
On the Long Island Railroad, 429 masks have been sold. They started being sold on August 6th. On New York City Transit, 1,137 masks have been vended. That started on July 1st. And on Metro North, 688 masks have been vended, and that started in July 7th. And the other half of the machines actually were installed on October 8th on Metro North, so we're awaiting those results.
Right.
But that's not too bad.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome. And I believe that the board will be getting intimate detail of the service cuts and where and how. If they go into effect, which we all pray they do not, they would go into effect May of 2021. Which and of course I asked the question, if we get the federal funds that we need, can this all be undone? And they said positively, absolutely, we can turn this around on a dime. And we sure hope that happens. And I think, Lisa, you wanted to give an update on federal funding?
Sure. Well, I think that the congestion pricing and the and what you've discussed overall with the budget provides a big grim picture. We had a call yesterday with federal advocates, something that we've been continuing to work on with our national partners yesterday, and we are participating on the local level, national level, as I continue to say monthly, but on December 1st at 5 p.m. we are working on, we're co-hosting a transit forum that will be featuring Senator Gillibrand, who will be talking about the importance of federal funding for transit. and it's still information, but we'll get all the details out to you. There are a lot of moving parts that are still really very active here. We're trying to really put together the emphasis and make a lot of major pushes before December. I believe it's 16th is when the MTA vote comes next, when the next MTA board meeting is, to really get the conversation started, even though we know that January 20th is almost more of a magical day, but to keep the conversation going and to keep our elected officials with the eye on their prize. So we're working. There are a number of activities that are happening nationally. Trudy, I'll get you that list. I'll get everybody the list as soon as it's all pulled together, with what everybody is doing. Senator, I was on a Cranes, participated in a Cranes event yesterday that Senator Schumer was on. He has pivoted, which apparently is the word of the pandemic, and is really focusing on the Gateway project. Yep. And spent about 20 minutes of the 30-minute webinar talking about Gateway funding. But he then spent the next 8 minutes talking about the importance of stimulus. And of those 8 minutes, devoted almost half of that to talking about the importance of funding the MTA, in addition to talking about funding state and local governments and schools and unemployment and small businesses and the like. So it continues to be on his radar, which is the good news, right? But I think that Gateway is something that he's particularly proud of and is moving forward. So our being able to keep the conversation on the less sexy workhorse transit is also really critically important.
This is Trudy again. What you just pointed out something that I forgot to mention, that in other parts of the country and with the present administration, because they don't particularly like Chuck and Kirsten, that they are saying, you can't have both. And, if you want to have the stimulus package and the money and basically a message was sent to Andrew, to the governor, basically saying that. So one of the important things is to, and you did a wonderful thing by pointing that out to Chuck, to Senator Schumer, because it's being used, anything positive is then used by others against us. And, saying, well, you can't have it all, even though the third tunnel, the Amtrak, whatever, I forget what its official name is, but the Amtrak tunnel is Gateway. Something that is just, the Gateway tunnel is just as important as to the economy and to the environment and everything else, which by the way is one of the selling points for the stimulus package, for getting the $12 billion, is that it's not just about transportation, it's about the environment, it's about the climate, it's about about the economy, and affects so much more. And at the risk of sounding political, there's another date that everybody should keep in mind, which is January 5th, which will be the special election, the two special elections in Georgia, because if the Senate stays in Mitch McConnell's control, it's going to be a lot more difficult, no matter what President-elect Biden does, to get a lot of these things through. So I'm not giving a pitch. I'm not telling anybody, but just to keep that date in mind. And if you want to know anything more about it, you can contact me directly. I'm not going offline, not here. But that is another date to keep in mind.
Yes. And I think even the New York Post had a fabulous editorial that of all of the funding requests that are coming all over the place, funding the MTA should be the first priority, because if you don't have a fully functioning, frequent, modern transit system, all of the other things fall by the wayside.
Andrew, you may want to send that editorial out to, or Lisa to everybody, because
We will.
it is
It's a great editorial, actually.
especially considering the source, which
Well, they've
usually
been
is
pretty
not.
positive about MTA.
I'll put that in the chat. Also, a streets blog. I know, but there's a great article on congestion pricing from Streets blog that we're in today.
That's
also.
right. But it would be helpful if you send them out to, as an attachment or something.
Oh, as an email.
Just,
Okay. I'll do that.
by email. Okay.
We will.
Because
We will.
especially Andrew, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not usually expected from the Post.
They've been pretty supportive of MTA on other occasions,
Okay.
so I'm not surprised.
That's my very subjective opinion.
Okay.
Whatever it is, it's good, and it happened, and everybody should read it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
While I'm thinking of it and we have a quorum, can we have approval of today's agenda? I know Chris said something, but he's muted in a weird way.
This is Trudy. I move to approve today's agenda.
Thanks. How about the minutes? Can we get an approval, or are there
I
any corrections?
move to approve the minutes.
I second.
All right. Terrific.
Can I say something about the cuts, if I may?
Yes, please.
All right. So many of you know yesterday, if you didn't get a chance to watch Pix 11, I did get my 5 seconds of fame discussing how I do not want to wait long for a bus or a subway. And I'm going to go more into specifics since I feel more comfortable talking about it with the council. So I keep saying to everyone, this is Passengers United, and maybe a couple board members, even Andrew knows this. I expect to be back on the system sometime in 2021. And my great fear right now, I understand, we always talk about fare hikes, and I'm going to be vocal about that in December. But my biggest fear right now is my time. And I heavily rely on a schedule, bus schedule, subway schedule. I know the subways come every 5 to 8 minutes. And I know when I expect to wait for a bus, I expect to wait on average at least 10 to 15 minutes. That's a fair amount of time. My concern is if, and somehow this is the doomsday scenario we keep talking about, we're going on into May. My concern, and this is especially when we know the vaccine's coming, especially how I think if everything goes according to plan, from what Pfizer and Moderna keep saying, it looks like I should be reinstated sometime in the second or third quarter of next year. My concern is when I do go back to work, when I do have to go back to MTA board meetings, and when I do want to do stuff for leisure, my employers are going to wonder, saying, why are you late? Andrew's going to wonder, oh, why isn't Andrew on time speaking to Larry Shorts or something? Or, what's going to happen if...
I'm wondering why you haven't been on the system lately. That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I'll be back in 2021. But listen, the point is, what if I need to get somewhere in a reasonable amount of time? I'm very worried about that. I never, ever in the amount of years I've taken public transit, I used to be on the system 3 to 4 days a week before the pandemic started. I'm worried when I come back to the system, I'm not going to have that bus. I'm not going to have, a subway come in 5 to 10 minutes, or same equation with the bus. So.
And if you have frequency like they're talking about, you certainly will not have social distancing.
Exactly. That's another problem I have. I still expect, even with the vaccine, I'm still going to be wearing a face mask until the governor lifts the order. And until then, I still am going to worry about social distancing. So if this happens, there's going to be a lot more chaos in 2021. And I certainly don't want to see that happen. And for Judy, thank you very much for mentioning that date. I know I have it circled in my calendar, and let's just hope we get that 51-49 vote that I keep telling Charlton about.
Thank you, Andy.
No problem.
There's going to be untold issues if these kinds of service cuts go through, not the least of which is people will find another way to travel and may stick to that, which then will only enlarge the deficit going forward. And the fewer people we have riding the system, the less is our ammunition to get a really great capital program going. These things feed on each other. Employers may not want to be here. Real estate values will sink, thus giving a much lesser tax base for the state of New York, who will then say, oh, we can't support the MTA because we're getting less and less money. It all feeds on itself. It will be, as I think I said in the quote of the Daily News, the end of the New York way of life.
If these cuts do happen, and this is another fear I am worrying about.
I thought you left the room.
No, no. I had to take care of something, but
oh, okay.
I was listening.
Okay.
But the other concern that I have with these cuts, if it does happen, you make a good point. A lot of employers are not going to want to be here.
No.
I keep hearing a bunch of rumors that if New York does fail, a lot of companies are thinking of moving to states like Texas and Delaware that offer a lot of economic benefits. And
New York is not going to fail, and they're doing a lot worse than we are.
Well, I hope not, because
Yeah.
I've been in Queens 25 years of my life, and I do not want to imagine not being back on the system in 2021, worrying about a long wait time.
And New York has a reputation for bouncing back.
Yeah. Andrew, Chris Greif has had his hand up.
He has?
All right, Chris, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
Andy, not your meeting. Andrew.
Do you guys hear me now?
It's a little tough to hear you, Chris. What's happened?
I'm at Atlantic Avenue. That's where I am right now. The only thing I just want to add is on the transit.
Chris, we cannot hear you at all.
Chris, why don't you use the regular phone and call in that way?
I did, it didn't work. But the problem is there's someone's making echo noises at the web's not on mute. I can't try to do
Can't
that.
hear you.
I don't know then.
Chris, put it up to your mouth.
I did.
There you go.
Can you?
There you
That's
go.
better.
I'm on maximum power. The only thing I'm trying to say is when you guys mentioned, let's say in the board, I feel there's going to be a problem with if you guys say discontinuing the monthly or the 7-day, well, more the monthly. We need to keep the monthly where it is today, because the monthly for people with disability or seniors, they use that because that's their income link. If we take that away, it's going to be a problem. And I hope that Transit Riders Council will please put a letter together saying no losing the monthly passes. And regarding the zones they're doing for like one zone for Nassau and Suffolk or the city, Nassau and Suffolk should be two separate zones, because Nassau is Nassau County and you have Suffolk County. That's something they need to work on, because some people cannot afford the prices they're asking for. And it's, again, as Edith will say this same way if she was here, you're always leaving out how much is the half fare price. That is something we need to concern that. And I don't want to have to hear that bus or subway cuts, because 10 years ago it happened, and I don't have to see that rerun episode again. So I'm strongly asking, can we please do something about that? Really, Andrew, strongly, and Lisa.
So we are gonna need to take a position on what we're gonna say, because the hearings start on December 1st, and that is, the PCAC meeting is on December 3rd. So we as PCAC can come up with a position collectively. And I think that makes sense, Chris, to talk about those cross-pollination issues that you're discussing. I personally I didn't quite get the what Larry was talking about with people, with there's fraud with people using time-based passes. I know that if I have a weekly pass, that I'm just going to ride more. I'm not going to sell it. I mean, that's what some people do when they're, as Sharon knows, standing at Jamaica, right? But that doesn't mean everybody's going to do that. That means that you're going to, you know, that's how people, particularly like messengers, et cetera, are going to use the system. So Larry, I don't think is a good harbinger or a good person to talk about how people use the system.
What he was referring to, I had this discussion with Mark from the Long Island today, is that apparently, unfortunately, there's a lot of people doing this. People buy, 5 or 10 of these monthly cards. They then sell, because there's an anti-passback feature on them, so you can't use the same one to keep selling rides and letting people in. They use a variety of them so that every few minutes they can let somebody in. They can swipe somebody in for a buck or whatever. I have actually seen it
But
myself.
that's not the majority of people. That's a
course it
handful
isn't.
of people.
Of course
And
it
then you're
isn't.
going to, you're
I
going
agree with you,
to,
Lisa.
you're going to ruin, you know, the ability of people to, as Chris said, budget for 100, you know, for this is what I budget for my month of rides. And
Correct.
if, you know, after 30 days on day 31, I have to walk everywhere because I don't have any more money for a trip. Unless they do fare capping, I think that's a terrible idea.
Right.
And can I add something to that, Lisa? Because I definitely 100% agree with you. The one thing that he left out is he does not see what people in low income and people with disability, because let me tell you, as I'm here in Atlantic Avenue, I know a lot of the families who budgets it always puts in a monthly, and yes, they put a little bit of money as an emergency with their card. But he's also forgetting the Omni Metro, the Omni future is going to change that. That's going to change a lot and I have not heard anything about the Omni, only what the person make that presentation. I agree that what he's saying, but I think when everyone's forgetting that I actually seen Atlantic Avenue, even I'm here today, even when I do the mass force, that train is sometimes going to Long Beach, the 323 train is crowded. And I don't understand where they're saying there's low ridership, which I could say there are some people back here. If it depends where they're going or where the transfer connections are. There's been a lot of ridership in certain areas, but I think they're not really checking them thoroughly. I definitely agree with Long Island Railroad that there is ridership, but really look at it. Be here. Put your feet on these trains. And I'm here as doing mass force in the next hour.
Chris, I think the 3 o'clock trains are the ones that are traditionally, you know, those are the construction worker trains, like between 1 and 3. So those are the ones that they show. Even if you look at the app, they're the ones that show that they're traditionally higher, a higher use. Stuart Goldstein has a question.
Yes, he does.
Thank you, Lisa Daglian. Is there any discussion about the Atlantic ticket or any of our fare initiatives being in jeopardy?
I've asked that very question, Stuart. Atlantic ticket will remain and continue indefinitely.
But wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Okay. I'm excited.
Bradley has done a lot of research on an extension of the concept into the suburbs, into Nassau and maybe Suffolk as well. And he is finalizing his work on that. And we will be arranging a conference with Mark Young, who is doing the fare initiatives for all of the operating agencies. And we will be presenting a possible extension of Atlantic ticket as well, and how it could be utilized to bring riders back. I know that Commissioner Kevin Law, the Long Island representative, is very interested in lower fares for his constituents, as are a number of the Metro North commissioners.
The reason I raised the question also was that if they're rationalizing subway service, reducing frequency on certain lines, this may be another alternative if we have the capacity,
Absolutely,
help change people's travel patterns and encourage them to use these underutilized services where we do have capacity.
You're right. And I neglected to mention something in my initial report about the service cuts. In addition to the service cuts that hopefully will not take place, they're also talking about right-sizing various train routes and bus routes, which means if rush hour hypothetically is not rush hour anymore, perhaps there are fewer trains between 7 and 9 a.m. and more in the off-peak, or what were off-peak hours, as people might be commuting later and or on different days of the week. So it's not only service cuts, it's also a look at the actual service that is being used. Demand is up in certain times and much lower at other times of the day. Any other comments or questions on this horrendous news?
Andrew, this is Chris. I just want to add one thing because I'm not going to be here later because I'm doing the mask force. Can you please follow up again about why can they not do Stillwell Avenue, Coney Island for the mask force? Because they actually leave out parts of the F line that you don't have anyone doing the mask force from there. Parts on the D line, it's too far out from Atlantic Avenue, Berkeley to Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue. It's not fair. And I have not seen that been changed.
I don't know who selects the stations for mask force. Lisa, do you have any idea?
I do not. I'm going to put Kate on the spot a little bit here. I think that actually is a Sarah Meyer special, but Kate.
It is a strategy and customer experience initiative. I can take the question back.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't make great sense to do a Coney Island mask force in the afternoon, but in the morning it sure might. So yeah, it would be good to know how these locations are selected and how frequently they change them. Thanks, Kate.
Yep.
Anything else on this topic? I mean, this topic could fill hours and hours. It's so horrendous. All right, then why don't we move to our speakers? We're very excited.
We're still early. I see that Luke joined. I don't know if he's still on.
Yeah, so I asked them to join us at 1 sharp.
Oh, okay. Then we will not do that yet.
I apologize.
Not a problem.
So Christopher's done the mask force. I'm going to do it later this afternoon. For anyone else who has or hasn't done it, it's a lot of fun. Strongly suggest that you do that when you can. Bradley was going to, not feeling well, so had to dial back, but we'll do it again in the future.
How frequently are these?
Contact about, for scheduling that?
Next time we get an email, I'll send it out.
Okay.
You may still be able to sign up today if you're interested.
Lisa, this is Chris. There is 2 ways you can do it. I actually found this out, and I have to thank MTA Government Relations because they did share that. But it's also on the MTA. When you guys do your put your complaints in on that on my MTA, there is also a way you can also press the quest. When you go for a quest, it shows mask force, and then they supposed to send you an email back to respond, and they have you on the list. That's one way. And the other way is if you type in maskforce.mta.info, that should also work as well.
Thank you.
The events are monthly. We're looking to do another one in December, but those dates have not been solidified yet.
Right. Thank you, Kate.
One quick question. Are they going to be around in 2021?
Excuse me?
Are they going to be around in 2021, the Max Force?
Probably. I mean, the pandemic's going to be around, right?
Yeah, because I'm probably going to be back on the system in April or May from what I'm assuming. So I just wanted to ask that generalized question.
Why is it taking that long?
That's pretty far out there, Andy.
Yeah, I
They're
can't answer that.
They're waiting for the non-essential personnel to get the vaccine. That's why.
That doesn't stop you from going out and taking a ride.
I'm here.
No, but I have no need to
I'm
travel
here.
at a particular moment.
You don't want to go and inspect the top of Chris's head?
I wish. In a normal circumstance, I would like to.
Okay.
Andrew, are you jealous, Andrew?
No, I'm fine. I'm Andrew. I'm not jealous.
I will say that yesterday I had the opportunity to participate in a call that Kathy Wild set up with Chief Royster from the NYPD's Transportation Bureau, which was a great opportunity to get to meet her. She is in charge of the 3,300 traffic agents, and she is in charge, that are responsible for enforcement. She talked a bit about the Vision Zero dollar cuts that are impacting both highway patrol and collision and investigation squad, and talked about data-driven enforcement that they're working on. I asked a question about bus lane enforcement and what they're doing regarding bus lanes, talking about how we've seen the increase in speed, in bus lanes, in bus travel during the pandemic, with fewer cars on the road, and also in places like 14th Street, and where there has been red light camera enforcement. And she noted, correctly, of course, that the street infrastructure is under the purview of DOT, and enforcement is the responsibility of the NYPD, and that she was going to, and that sort of jogged her to make that she's going to have a meeting with City DOT to coordinate a bit better on bus enforcement, and that their approach to bus lane to bus lanes is education and enforcement. Education first, enforcement second, and we are those of us who are on the phone were sort of more about the enforcement aspect, but really reinforce the importance of continuing the positive strides that had been made with bus speeds. So I just wanted to pass that along as well.
Hi, this is Trudy. I've also had a chance to virtually meet her and speak with her. And do you think we could get her, just as we had, what's his name, the last head, the last head of who has gotten a promotion, in case anybody worries about, he wasn't pushed out or anything. He got a promotion. But and I'm going to sound terribly chauvinistic, but she is the first woman to head up the transit police or the transit division of the NYPD, whatever it is. And she is very impressive and has some interesting takes on various problems that we have. Lisa, do you think we could get her to, or Andrew, or
so that
somebody?
Is a different chief.
Her.
That is Chief O'Reilly, and she is she's the head of the Transit Bureau, and
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, and Andrew had reached out to her to see if she could be, if she was available. But we're hoping for December, but we're, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to meet with her as well separately.
But if we could have her for December, that would be wonderful. So
we're working on it.
I'm glad to hear that you're on top of it. Thank you.
And then Trudy, we would like the president-elect for February.
What you'd like the president-elect? I'll see what I can do. He may be a little busy since he will only be sworn in shortly before that, but I'll see what I can do. No, we will try to get somebody concerned with once people are appointed, and we have at least the regional representative for DOT, or it keeps the names keeps on to FT. Andrew, what is it called? Or Lisa,
FTA.
FTA, Federal Transit Administration.
Oh, I was right. Okay, yep. FTA. That I will try and get that person as soon as we know who it is, and they have sort of gotten their sea legs. So, yeah, I will. I'll work on that, but it's going to take a little bit of time, as you can understand.
Well, if January is better because he won't have been inaugurated yet, then that works as well too.
Lisa.
You can't see me, but I am actually smiling.
No. No, the inauguration is set, no matter what else you may hear. He is still going to be inaugurated on January 20th.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
A few words about the new live map.
Yeah, I was just gonna
made
bring that
several
up.
recommendations to the folks that are working on it, and some corrections have been made. It is still not 100% right, but it is better than it was, and is giving better directions now. It had some really confusing destinations for various trains, and those have been corrected in large part, not in totality. But if you're on a station and you log into the live map on your smartphone or device, and you will absolutely see when the next trains are, both visually and on a timetable type schedule, so many minutes away, and you can see them moving on a map. So it's pretty cool. There's still some corrections that have to be made, though. It's doing it by platform direction versus actual train destination in some stations, but not others. So that has to be fixed. But it's a great. It's beta, as they said, and it is great.
And Metro North introduced a new app earlier this week that is akin to the Long Island Railroad app that includes crowding.
Yep.
So that's what we're trying. Sharon, if you ever get a
Metro
train
North
again,
train
Sharon.
Lisa, this is Bert. I got to get off the call. See you next month.
All right. Good luck, Bert.
Good luck,
Thank you
Bert.
very
Happy
much.
Thanksgiving, Bert.
Oh,
Happy
yes,
Thanksgiving,
you
Bert.
all too. Bye-bye.
Excuse me, Andrew, this is Chris. I'd
And
like to add-
Christopher, you still have your hand raised, or is that again?
Once again,
Okay.
no, just want to add one thing. You know, I was invited to the 59th Street and 4th Avenue of the NNR train's new accessibility station. Was there last following week, and I have to say it was really beautiful. We did have a lot of elected officials, and Trudy, one of the elected officials, sends her regards to you and wishes you a happy, healthy Thanksgiving to not just Trudy, but also.
Chris, you're going in and out. Sorry. I heard Trudy and that was it.
Emmett,
Okay.
I just heard my name, but I didn't, and then Chris disappeared. What? Could you repeat?
Yes, I'm going to repeat it again. I apologize because the microphone on the train station was making noise. I had to move. What I was saying was 59th Street was just opened the other week, and they had the open ceremony. Congresswoman, and I'm going to say her name by mistakenly, Nidia Velasquez, and I'm saying it wrong, sends you regards.
Nidia Velasquez.
Thank you. That's what I said. Either way, thank you. Thank you either way. As I was saying was, she sends everyone on the Transit Riders Council a happy, healthy Thanksgiving. And Trudy, she sends your regards and love to you as well. But all I'm saying is the Transit Riders Council, she's really pleased how the Transit Riders Council is really active and moving, as well as the ACTA, the new accessibility committee. She's really pleased, and she's doing everything in her power to make sure there is funding coming down 1,000%.
Thanks, Chris.
Great.
Stuart has something to say before we have our speakers. We've got Howie and Luca, and we're waiting for one more person, I think.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. We spoke about it at prior meetings about the cleaning of trains, but I want to ask a question about the cleaning of stations. You know, my observation when I ride is that the trains are still fairly clean, but stations are beginning to look worn. I was at a variety of different stations recently, like major stations, West 4th, the William Street end of Fulton Street, some others in Lower Manhattan, and they just don't seem to be getting attention. Have we heard anything from the authority on the cleaning schedule or anything?
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
I've been told that every station is getting twice a day cleaning.
I'm not talking about the platforms. I'm talking about mezzanine and fare control.
Yeah, that's part of station.
Well, okay. I could send you some pictures, but
please do, because I will pass it along.
But they're pretty worn. Okay.
Is this on a repetitive basis, or that you've seen a particular place looking bad, or just on one particular occasion?
On several occasions over the last month since we met.
But the same place we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, please send that to me. Are all of our speakers present yet?
Um,
I don't see Munson.
Munson's not here yet. Okay,
well, it's 12:59, so it's not precisely.
that is true.
And I believe Luke will. This is how Luke will also be joining us. I don't see Luke either.
Oh, Luke was here for a sec.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him.
He's been in and out. Is everybody taking everybody taking transit to their non-holiday dinner?
Always.
Home.
Munson's here at exactly 1.
How about that?
Yeah.
Lisa, you want to introduce our speakers since you were instrumental in setting this up?
Yes, but and here's Luke.
Great.
Here we go. I'm gonna do this very graciously and introduce Kate. And ask Kate to introduce our speakers and our topic. So Kate is as our regular member of our New York City Transit Riders Council. She is a part of government. What's the official title of your office, Kate?
Government and Community Relations.
Government and Community Relations. She comes to us. She joined us after Deborah Hall Moore retired, but she was actually part of us and participated in our meetings before that. So Kate is going to now take over for me and do a much better job than I would of introducing Howie, Luke, Bob Paley, who's joining us, and Munson, and the topic of our very interesting conversation today. So Kate, please take it away. Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you. So Luke DePalma and Howie Levine are representatives in the Office of Government and Community Relations. Munson is in the Transit-Oriented Development Group along with Bob. And they've been working on a really exciting initiative called Zoning for Transit Accessibility. And as I understand it, the goal here is to really find a way to make accessibility a core function of planning in New York City. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the team and they will take you through their presentation. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, everybody. So I'm Luke DePalma, and thanks, Kate, thanks, Lisa, thanks, PCAC for having us, Transit Riders Council. So I'm going to just briefly introduce the topic at hand, and then I'll pass it to Munson, who has been doing an excellent job of presenting these PowerPoints to various stakeholders in the early stages of this rollout. So Zoning for Transit, ZTA, is a collaboration between the city and the MTA, city planning and the council and the MTA. And it creates a zoning framework that should help accelerate accessibility throughout the system. It entails a combination of zoning bonuses and easement requirements for new development. And we always say we think this initiative will have wide-ranging benefits for ADA expansion. Munson will take you through the presentation and delve into the specifics, and we're here to answer any questions you may have at any point.
Thanks, Luke.
Sure.
Can I share my screen now? Let's see. Let me go into slide view. Hold on. Sorry.
If you go to slideshow, oh, you got it.
Yep, let me go to the first slide. Can everyone see the whole slide, or what do you see? Or do you see?
We see a bunch of pages, but
yeah, if you go to use slideshow, that's probably the best.
We see the cover and then the pages below, all right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. I think I met a few of you before at a few of our other briefings. Thanks, Luke. That was a great introduction. I am going to advance. Oops, sorry, wrong. I'm going to have
A
to.
different one, right?
I'm going to open up a different one. Sorry about this.
Working remotely, just there's so many different devices we're all on.
I haven't seen a single cat in at this meeting, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, hold on. Sorry
Be
about
nice, Luke. Be nice, Luke.
Is that Chris? How are you, Chris?
that. Okay, hold on 1 second. Almost there.
I think if you go to slideshow, play the first slide, that'll work. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Are we there?
We see it.
Okay. Thanks,
Perfect.
everyone. Okay. So as Luke was saying, this is a partnership between the MTA, New York City Department of City Planning, as well as New York City Council. And we've been working on this initiative for the last few years. It builds upon the 2018 Fast Forward Plan, as well as our current capital program, which currently includes 70 stations targeted for accessibility. In 2019, the City Council issued its own Zoning for Transit Accessibility report, which identifies a few zoning recommendations, which we have incorporated as part of this initiative. As well as the actual current zoning resolution does include certain provisions to help the MTA with accessibility, but I will explain why some of those provisions are limited, which we want to expand as part of this initiative. This slide speaks to itself, and this is why we have undertaken this initiative. We know that only about a quarter of our stations are currently accessible, which impacts people with disabilities, seniors, as well as parents with young children, and those with temporary injuries.
You know what's ironic? That slide had a sign on it that said, can you just go back one? It said, a subway ride that should take minutes can take hours. Maybe that refers to the service cuts.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully.
So as you all know, our system is quite old, with most of the stations built before 1950, where they weren't designed with accessibility in mind. And so that has presented many challenges for us, which we are addressing, but it takes time, and we are currently increasing the number of stations we have. We've added a few more stations that are accessible, and we expect to add a few more, roughly 3 to 5 before the end of the year. What this map shows you is basically the ones that are currently accessible, targeted to be accessible, in construction, or inaccessible right now. You guys already know about our capital program, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, especially given the situation we are in right now. I do want to say, though, that ZTA is more critical than ever, because we will partner with developers in providing additional opportunities for accessibility or for space for vertical improvements within our system. ZTA would not replace any capital commitments that we currently have. What it does is it supplements our capital commitments. And that's an important distinction that we need to make sure that the general public is aware of. This slide speaks to the challenges that we've confronted with our station upgrades. Because our stations are old, and they weren't designed for accessibility, many of our stations are very tight, and they're also on multiple levels. And we have a lot of infrastructure. We have a lot of utility lines going throughout our system. So it does take time, and it does take a lot of capital commitments. What we are hoping to address with ZTA, especially at the street level, is where sidewalks, and I'll explain that in a few other slides, where sidewalks are really constrained, and by getting easements within future development sites, it removes the space on the sidewalk for elevators and puts them in future developments. This is a zoning slide, and it explains how zoning can be a really effective tool, which, as I mentioned, we currently have some provisions in the zoning resolution to help us with accessibility. It can be a really effective tool to help align private development with station accessibility. And what that does is it often results in better configured stations when we work with developers in providing our entrances within their developments. We work with many groups within New York City Transit to make sure that that new entrance will provide the best improvement for the station. It has and it will continue to result in millions of dollars in savings for us when we have a developer make the improvement, allowing us to dedicate our critical capital improvement dollars, future dollars, into other places where we certainly need them. And there's also savings in real estate where we often spend a significant amount of money acquiring real estate for things like vertical accessibility. This image, what this shows is just an example of how we have both an easement, which is a permanent allocation of space within another owner's site, and it also shows where we can incentivize the construction of station entrances where the developer gets additional zoning development rights. I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. So existing transit-related zoning has been effective. As I mentioned, we do have certain provisions in place. And here you see that an entrance such as the Fulton Transit Station, the Fulton Station, this one is tucked inside the building. It often results in better design, as I mentioned. When you take an entrance off of the sidewalk and into the building, it improves the pedestrian environment, and it also helps us with the delivery of our transit improvements. But our existing zoning is limited. It's limited in terms of geography. If you look at this map, you'll see that the pink circles, as well as the blue outlines and the red outlines, is basically the locations where stations are eligible for a transit improvement bonus. And you can see it doesn't cover other parts of Manhattan, for example. As well as there are very, very limited places where we can get an easement, where developers are obligated to give us an easement where we need them. And that's basically limited to the 2nd Avenue subway alignment. And you can see those little gray shaded areas. Another limitation of existing zoning is developers who want to get a zoning bonus, they have to be adjacent to the station. So if a developer is a block away, even though they would conceivably contribute riders if they wanted to get a bonus, they're not currently eligible. You have to be adjacent, and this is something we're working to address as part of this initiative. And the other challenge to the current zoning is if you want to get a bonus as a developer, you have to get a special permit. And to get a special permit, you go through the ULURP process. And the ULURP process is a public, there's a whole public outreach process, and then it goes to city council at the very end. So what it does is, because ULURP is left, there is the city council often leaves it to the home district of the council members. It creates a lot of uncertainty for developers. And what we've seen is that we've had actually very limited number of projects where developers have sought to get a zoning bonus and given us a transit improvement. And oftentimes because of that uncertainty in the process. So this is where I will start to dig into the zoning for transit accessibility initiative. It is composed of two key components, two different but somewhat related components. The first one is a citywide easement certification process where developers that are adjacent to any of our stations must come to us and ask us whether we need an easement within their future development site for vertical accessibility. I mean, it won't go into the lowest density district, but basically it will cover any station within New York City. I should also add that it's not just New York City Transit, but it's also Long Island Railroad stations and Metro North stations within the New York City limits. And there are a handful, as we all know. The other component of ZTA is an expanded transit improvement bonus. And I'll have a map for you in the next slides, in the next few slides. As I shown in the previous slide, it's pretty limited to only the highest, the central business districts of New York City. We would expand the geography under ZTA. We would also expand the definition of adjacency as well. So going into the easement provision of zoning for transit accessibility, as I mentioned, developers adjacent to our stations must come to the MTA and city planning first to ask us if we need an easement for vertical access into our stations. And that is for all stations, whether they're elevated, below grade, all kinds. Now, we wouldn't just say we need this easement size in this location. It is a back and forth conversation between the MTA and the developer. We certainly don't want to make their development their site unusable for their future development. So it is a negotiation. We would identify what's the best size, what's the best location. There are certain heights as well for the easement, especially for the elevated stations. And the last thing that we want to do is, we want to make sure is that the developer is made whole. And so the future zoning text language will provide for zoning relief for the developer. And what that means is if we're taking a volume of space for the easement, that volume of space, any volume of space that's above ground, wouldn't count as zoning floor area. So they could use that zoning floor area elsewhere in their development. And if that zoning floor area happens to require an additional floor, but that additional floor would exceed the current height limits, then they would get zoning relief on the height limit. Additionally, if you take a certain volume of space and all of a sudden it impacts how you would lay out your parking because there's a parking requirement in that particular zoning district, then you would get relief on the off-street parking requirements. And then here are a few other examples on this slide. And it really depends on the zoning district because we have dozens of zoning districts around the city. So it'll depend on the zoning district as well as on the size of the easement that we would hope to acquire from the developer. Okay, so the other component of ZTA is that transit improvement bonus and the expansion of the existing bonus. What we are seeking to do is to expand the geography of that bonus to other high density areas of the city. And this is represented by those blue dots in addition to the pink dots. And as you can see, now we have basically most of Manhattan, because most of Manhattan is a high density zoning district. Anything above an R9 or an R10, or anything at least an R9 and an R10, as well as parts of downtown Brooklyn, a few more stations in Long Island City, and a few stations in downtown Jamaica. And developers who are interested now, who are interested in getting a bonus, could get a bonus up to 20% of their base floor area. As I mentioned also, developers no longer have to be immediately adjacent to the station. They can be up to approximately a block away and be eligible for that bonus. And finally, what we're seeking to do for under ZTA is to modify the current process where developers would still require the approval of the City Planning Commission through authorization, but it would no longer require the final City Council vote. But it would still have to go through the public process of ULURP, where you go to the community board, you go to your borough presidents, and you go to the City Planning Commission, and so forth. But this would require the approval of the City Planning Commission. We started working with our consultants. Our consultants are led by WSP as well as AKRF. We started working with them in May. We spent some months doing highly technical zoning analysis, especially on the easement provision, to understand what types of zoning relief would work in different types of zoning districts. Right now, we are doing the environmental analysis for both the easement provision as well as the zoning bonus. We expect to complete our environmental assessment in the next few months and to certify in the first quarter of next year. We have undertaken and we are currently reaching out to advocates, our electeds, because this is a citywide initiative. So this is a really big undertaking. This will require us to go to basically all 59 community boards when we undertake the formal land use review process, which we expect to kick off in about March of next year. Our goal is to get this to City Council at the beginning of next fall. We need to get this to them before the end of the administration and before the end of terms. Our goal is to bring it to them sometime in late September. And this is just a list of some of the advocacy groups that we have reached out to already. And we expect to expand this list to include planning organizations, as well as others that will help us communicate the importance of ZTA. So it was a lot of information. I'm happy to entertain questions.
Great. Do people have questions?
This is the last slide.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Munson. So you're hoping to bring this to the City Council by September?
Of next year, yep.
Okay. Are there any City Council members that are helping to introduce this, that are stakeholders in this?
So Corey Johnson, he issued the Zoning for Transit Accessibility Report, the Let's Go report. And we have been working very closely with the City Council land use staff. They are, and they're a partner in this with us. They are taking the lead in communicating with many of the key council members, and we are actually, they are actually issuing notifications to all City Council members, I believe the end of this week or early next week, to let them know. Many of them have already know. Many of them already know about this. We briefed council members Margaret Chin, because she heads the seniors committee, Moya, who I believe heads either land use or zoning, and Salamanca, as well as Ayala, who heads disability. We do expect to have champions.
Thank you.
And just maybe Andrew, to follow up on this, is Howie. But it's not like a piece of legislation where we need specific council members to introduce it. It'll actually be just kind of introduced by the Department of City Planning, will be the applicant for this proposal, and then it will go through the process. There's not an official, sponsor of the bill.
Yeah. And anybody that wants accessible stations in their district should sign on to this, obviously. Anybody else with questions?
I know Christopher had a question.
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, this is Chris. Just want to
mention. No, Chris, it's Trudy. I have to get off this call actually 2 minutes ago. So I just have one quick question.
Go ahead, Trudy.
If that's okay? Yeah, or maybe a comment. I'm just wondering, because this is comes from this program in various incarnations, has been around since I was at the MTA, and we did like the Hunter College station and the Brooklyn Museum, some of those stations. And I'm just wondering, this new initiative, how much of it stemmed from the Vanderbilt Avenue project with SL Green? Did that have anything to do with then this new initiative coming out of it?
I don't know if Bob Haley's on the phone, who knows more about the East.
I would say
I'm just wondering the genesis of this. I think it's a great program, by the way. I'm just wondering about the genesis of what prompted it to happen.
So, as you pointed out, provisions have been in the zoning resolution for quite some time, and they've been successfully used, and they've been expanding over time. And the Vanderbilt corridor was a major expansion in a very targeted area. And I think that the success of One Vanderbilt, and it'll be opening within a month, I believe, the concourse system that they have constructed, I think underscored how important this partnership with private development is to bring accessibility to the system. So it's not what triggered this, because this has been a long dialogue that we've been having with city planning over many, many years. But I think that this is really what triggered it, as much as anything, is a complementary initiative to MTA's strong commitment in terms of capital investment. And as Moon Sun pointed out, this doesn't replace it. This will help facilitate those series of investments.
Well, thank you. I think it's a great program, and anything that extends and brings the public and private sector together is wonderful, because we need more private sector input, money, whatever you want to call it, into what we're doing. So, and I'm glad that One Vanderbilt, which is a wonderful project, helped move it on. Thank you very much. And now let me just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, because I have to get off the phone right now.
You too,
So
Trudy.
Thanksgiving to
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a safe Thanksgiving.
All right, Christopher had a question, and then Sharon had something she wanted to add.
Yeah, to add what Trudy's saying also, I agree with Trudy. I've seen this presentation as an ACT member. I'm glad to see that you're listing all the organizations. I did remind you that the last time there were still some other organizations. I mentioned to you that there's the Brooklyn DD Council and the advisory councils in all 5 boroughs. When you have a chance, please send me an email, or Luke knows how to find me as well. But I am so supportive of this, because accessibility of elevators, ramps, even everything, we have to make sure that our accessibility is at these train stations, and to make sure they're running 100%. I hope that this planning does go through, and I will fight for this to the death. So, and I will, Andrews, I know you're thinking about it from here. But I am strongly supporting this. So I'm asking all my fellow TRC members, please support this, because we definitely need accessibility, and this can maybe help the city to put the funding in as well. Thank you, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Sharon?
I just wanted to add that the accessibility is also really important and often overlooked for senior citizens who are hauling their groceries around and luggage around. And it's not just for people with disabilities, but there's a whole older percent of the population that really benefits from this as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We have AARP as one of our advocates that we're working with.
Great.
Excellent. Anybody else have any questions about this? Can you keep us posted on the progress, folks? That would be helpful. If
So I did want to add something also. So Congresswoman Velasquez, who we were speaking about earlier, Kate was on then, introduced legislation that may someday, maybe possibly one day, go somewhere, that would have provided for $5 billion of worth of money for accessibility projects for large systems. I think it was written for New York. I can't imagine why. That would certainly be a great additional significant sum of money that would be helpful for these kinds of projects too. If you are looking for that draft legislation, I can send it to you. I think Will has it also, or we can wait until it gets reintroduced next year.
Great.
Great.
Anyone else? Well, thank you so much, everybody, for this presentation. It sounds very exciting. It's so logical. One has to wonder why it didn't come up years ago. But in my neighborhood on the Upper West Side, many folks are looking for more accessible stations and have been looking for funding partners with developers when they're within a block or two of various stations. And I know this is on a lot of Upper West Siders' mind, and I'm sure citywide. So thank you, and we hope to be supportive of this.
Great.
Thank you
Have
for
a
having
great holiday.
Thank you for support.
Thanks for your time.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Be well
everyone.
and safe, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Howie. Do we have any items of new business to bring up? Any old business to bring up?
Andrew, this is Chris. I have new business.
All right, then.
The one thing I'm just going to add, and I was going to save that for new business because I have a little time because I can run it right around the corner. I agree with Stuart about one thing about cleaning the parts of the mezzanine area. But the only thing is I have definitely seen them cleaning the elevators because this is between new and old. I have seen them cleaning the elevators a little more cleaner, but I know Ada just texted me Can you please tell them to please clean the elevators at West 4th Street, Washington Square? They look disgusting, and that's all I'm going to say nicely.
Any particular bank of them at West 4th Street?
All of them. All of them. All of them. I don't have to mention the codes and numbers. It's all of them. The only way she will go in, she needs an oxygen tank to go in. And that's how she said it stinks. It's disgusting.
Who are we talking about now?
West 4th Street, Washington
No,
Square.
I know, but who smelled this?
Probably Ann.
Edith.
Oh, Edith. Oh, okay.
So when I've raised issues about cleanliness of cars and stations in the past, and this has happened in particular to be on the Long Island Railroad, it takes one person to make one mess, and it undoes everything. So it takes one person to go in an elevator and do
That's right.
one thing. It takes one person to drop their cup of coffee on the floor and leave it there.
That's why I asked Stuart
to be a disgusting pig.
Andrew,
that's why I asked, is this a repetitive location that you're noticing this?
It's a continuous lack of attention to the state.
If that's the case, we will definitely act on that, Stuart.
Right.
I mean, I know that in my station, it just looks like it's never been cleaned because the grime is so baked in to the tiles that it probably never will be clean again. There's only one way to get it clean, and that's to do over.
Maybe you live in a high grime district.
Right. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Definitely not a high rent district, Andrew.
Anyone else with any other items to bring up?
Andrew, one other
go ahead, Stuart.
East Broadway, are they progressing with the renovations, or is everything at a standstill? Because each time I'm passing through, it looks like nothing's happening.
I know that they're working on the Rutgers tube itself at various times. And there have been GOs, to reroute trains so that they don't use the Rutgers to, go through the Cranberry tube. And then they run, E-trains down to Delancey, Essex and things, and a shuttle bus to East Broadway. But lately, I haven't seen that work happening, Stuart. So let me see what the status is of that project, and I'll get back to you.
Looks like it's at a standstill, yeah.
Let me ask. Unless Kate is on and Kate knows.
I'm checking the news release right now. I believe this project was, you know what? I don't know for sure, so I don't want to answer, but we can look into it, or you can ask your regular contacts, however you want to handle it, Andrew.
I'll ask. Thank you so much, Kate. I don't want to give you extra work.
I think it was phased, so we might be in a lull between phases, but I wouldn't put any money down on that because there's just so much work. It's hard for me to keep it all straight.
Thanks.
I believe we have a project website for this one though. So let me, see if I can find that, I'll put it in the chat.
And I'll take a look at that too. Thank you, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else with anything? Then let me wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will be in touch as soon as we know more details about the public hearing process and or service cuts and details to those proposed cuts. Let's hope that
safe.
Happy Thanksgiving,
everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lisa,
Yes, Sharon.
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I have been going.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on.